Hi friends, welcome to another video and episode of the James Red Podcast. Today I want to talk about meeting a need with your art. And when I say meeting a need with your art, I'm not going to go the direction that I would normally go with a video titled such as this, which would be something along the lines of create something meaningful that serves people, or any of the malarkey that normally flies out of my face. I want to talk about meeting a need for the market with your art. First off, I must digress briefly. I apologize, my skin has been a bit of a nightmare for the past couple of days, but it's okay. I'm going to dip my face in acid later on today, and that should just fix everything right up. But I'm speaking to this subject not as somebody who has a particular level of expertise in this realm, but as somebody who is figuring out where I fit in this. I'm in a unique place in my life. And I like to watch other creators who have done this well. They found a unique interface between their style and the marketplace. It's this nice overlapping that occurs. But I've always said that art exists in the realm of cause and effect. You input your cause, your intentions, and what comes out the other end is the effect. And sometimes that effect aligns with what you're up to. Sometimes it doesn't. And for different people, they experience different things from your art that may or may not align with what you're trying to create. So because of this, sometimes it's a good idea to think about what the effect would be. Not always. I think that you don't always have to think about the effect. You might be okay with it being sort of a random effect for everybody in certain situations. In the case of street photography, for example, people are going to interpret it a different way. In the case of music, if you think of instrumental music, right? You could poll a group of people on any given song, and they're going to give you vastly varying experiences of how they experienced that particular piece of music. You'll get this one person, he was like, I hated it. Go away. Or the next person will say, it makes me think of my relationship with my father. The next person could say, it's melodically the most beautiful thing that I've ever heard in my life, and I cry out of all of my orifices every time I listen to it. It's quite painful. And so you're going to get these widely divergent experiences, interpretations of art. And this is not a bad thing. This is fantastic. But if you're trying to apply what you're creating to some specific niche, if you're trying to accomplish a goal with your art, that's why it's a good idea. That's when it's a good idea to start to think about what the effect could be of that thing. So you can explore your creativity and open-minded vastness and not think about the effect if you want to. Nothing wrong with that. But specifically, if you're trying to apply your work to the marketplace, this is a great example of when you should be thinking about the effect, because the needs of the marketplace are rather specific, oftentimes. So intentionality towards the effect is a way to achieve your goals with your art. And sometimes this can happen by accident. Sometimes an unattended effect can come about that actually makes you viable to the marketplace in an interesting way that you never intended. But more times than not, it's going to take intentionality on your part to actually achieve that. You can't wait for that serendipitous moment to occur, I've learned. But it's important to market yourself to meet a need, I think. And it's important to find an interface point between your style and what the market wants. And I think designers are such an interesting example of this, because I follow a lot of designers. And there are a lot of these designers who are able to have a style that is really core to who they are and it's a really special thing to them. And they're creating what they feel like is meaningful work. And that style can so easily fit into the hole. Like if you have one of those things that you see at the doctor's office where they come up with the analogy where you fit a square peg into a round hole. Well, they're creating round objects that go into round holes. And it's easy it can be easier to do this with design than other art forms, I think. I think that it's easier for a designer to create content that's conducive for icons, if that's the type of work that they create, or UI, or educational videos, or coffee shop menus, perhaps. If you're into typography, you can do a lot in the marketplace. Other art forms is a little bit harder to find that connection point, I think. But I follow a lot of people that fall into that pocket, and it's incredibly exciting to me when I see people do this well. It inspires me, right? So in life, there's always a next level for you, but a lot of times you won't see that next level. You might not start reaching for that next level. And in this case, that next level might be applying your art form to the marketplace if it is not presented to you that there is a next level. And an example of when you realize that there's a next level is when you spend time around other people who are at that next level, or who are at some version of something that's interesting to you, and you realize, oh, there's a next level that I need to be at. I need to be intentional about trying to figure out what that is for myself and strive towards that. You can become complacent if you don't put yourself around those types of environments. And that is why it is important to be around, it's important to have a social life as a creator and be around other people who are thinking differently than you are. So I want to talk about a couple of creators that I've come across that either do meet this connection point well, or I have no idea if they actually do interact with the market, but I would love to see them find a connection point. And I've thought of interesting ways that they could find a connection point. And so these thought exercises are nice ways to think about how you could do that for yourself. If you're enjoying this content from the visual realm, you may notice that you've been transported into some sort of 8-bit gaming world, some sort of dystopic future land. And it's okay, you're still in the real world. Don't panic. This is a piece of art by a guy named on Instagram kirokaze, tomato perhaps. And I've been following this person who calls himself a pixel artist for a little while now. I've been fascinated by this pixel art. I think it's an interesting form of design. And I love the ability of these people to take sort of a dream in their head and turn it into something that we can experience. The ability to create a world out of nothing, so to speak. And a lot of the stuff you'll see in this realm of design is sort of dystopic future city urban environments. Beautiful colors, very atmospheric, very moody. And so some of the stuff is animated that you'll find on Instagram. Some of the stuff is more still frames. In this case, it's animated. I'll show you another one in a second that's still frame. But I would love to see this type of work applied to the marketplace in interesting ways. Like, obviously, it makes sense that this would go into game design. I'd love to see this on the App Store, right? But like one of them that you pay $5 for, and then there's no more in-app purchases, and it's not a complete abortion of capitalism. But I'm not bitter. But also, I'd love to see this on the side of a building, like 50 foot long, on like a Manhattan residential building. That would be so interesting. Or used as like a form of branding for a company. Like, I'd love to see a homepage, this huge image that maybe it's their campus represented in pixel art. That would be super interesting. There's another person that I came across on Instagram who is I thought that it was actually a creator. They're actually a curator of pixel art content, and their name is venturebit. And if you're having trouble finding them, and you want to find them, their profile picture is a pizza, and it's an 8-bit pizza, and it's adorable. This next one, which I found on the VentureBit page, is by @Emperor_Wee, W-E-E. And it's another sort of dystopic urban environment, this time much more warm orange tones. And then in the foreground, you have the silhouette of a person standing on a bridge that's connected to these cliffs that go up the side and create a sort of framing mechanism all the way up the side of the frame, and then the city's in the background. And just like sort of addicting, mesmerizing atmospheres. And this is a characteristic of this type of work. there's another one by a person named Romain Courtois, I believe. And this one's I chose this one because it goes in the opposite direction from the urban dystopic future world of socialism. And this is a giant cat with like what looks like a submarine strapped to his back. And all the colors are very warm, lots of interesting pastel, vintage-esque kind of tones. But the submarine that the cat's wearing on his back is like this bluish color, which contrasts well. And once again, a fantastic example of world creating. This person saw this in their head and made it into a world for us to enjoy with them. I think that's so fascinating. The next person I want to talk about, or persons, it's a design studio called DKNG, and I found them on dribble.com, DRIBBBLE.com, and that's a great place to go for design inspiration if you're into that kind of thing. I go there all the time, but they have beautiful design work, but one of the things I'm particularly interested in for today is, I guess what I would call isometric illustration, I suppose. And it's characterized by this isometric viewpoint, which is what you would see in like a SimCity game or a Roller Coaster Tycoon, Zoo Tycoon game. A lot of the city building games that you can find on the App Store right now that have a bunch of in-app purchases and wars and capitalism are in this sort of viewpoint format, and it's a very aesthetically pleasing format. And so what we're looking at here is a design by the studio that takes on this dynamic. And this work is so interesting to me because the colors are so beautiful. It's so easy to digest as a person. The scene that is created, these colors just flow into our brains so freely that this would be an excellent example of like instructional, educational content, infographics, this sort of thing. And you'll see a lot of designers apply this type of work to that. And there's another example by them that's not isometric of a couple of whales. And the whales are in this orange sea, I believe. And then the whales are like the more of a purple color. So very vintage kind of tones once again. And I would put that on my wall over my bed. Christina! My wife's gone. She doesn't even reply. She's not even going to entertain that thought. Another example, getting out of the design world, is a band called Alt J. Maybe you've heard of them. They're pretty popular, but they're kind of in the middle point where it's like most people might not know about them, but a lot of people also know about them. But I came across one of their songs in an ad the other day, and this is why I wanted to talk about them. They have such a distinctive sound, if you've ever heard them. This is what they sound like. You're the first and last of your kind. Wasn't that riveting? Very distinctive and unique sound. I can't think of a single other band that sounds anything like them, which is very hard to do. And I won't speak to all of what makes their sound so distinctive, but a couple of things. The vocalist has an incredibly interesting, unique voice. The drummer, I've noticed when he plays on stage, he doesn't have cymbals, which is, you may or may not know, is an incredibly odd thing to do as a drummer. But it forces this style of drumming that is signature for Alt J and provides part of the signature sound that is Alt J. But I found them in an ad. I don't remember, well, I didn't find them. I knew about them before the ad, but I heard an ad the other day with their music in it and immediately recognized them. One thing about Alt J is you'll hear them, and then you might hear them a month later, and you'll go, oh, that was that band. You might not even know their name, but you'll know that was the band you listened to a couple of weeks ago that sounded like that band, and you're like, that's definitely them because no other band sounds like them. But that's that band that was featured in the thing that you watched the other day, and then you realize that was that band, you know. So where was I? I don't remember what the ad was, but and I'm sorry because I know that was what you woke up this morning wondering. What ad was Alt J featured in? You know, you're sitting at your coffee table drinking coffee, the correct way to use a coffee table. And I know of plenty of you out there that don't use your coffee tables correctly. Eating your single piece of toast. And you're thinking, I hope James can tell me what ad Alt J was featured in. Because I need to know. I lost my girlfriend over this. My cat died. Unrelated. And to that I say, you should probably see a counselor. It's pretty extreme. But coffee will certainly help you keep up on the coffee thing with the coffee table and maybe take some pills. So this is an example of a very unique band applying their very unique sound in a way that is applicable to the marketplace. And it's so interesting when I see that happen to such a self-based band. So meaning that it's a band that is not, they're not there for the money. They are interested in the music because they love the music so much. And their unique sound is an expression of their hearts when it comes to that. That's so fantastic to see. I think the last person I want to talk about is my friend Will Crooks. He is such a perfect example of taking a segment of an art form that feels like it wouldn't make sense in the marketplace and putting gentle tweaks on it that make it work incredibly well. He's a street fashion photographer. I've spoken with him before on here. You can find our long-form conversations with one another. He's a street fashion photographer who started working at a publication doing work that's incredibly similar. Now, he started using some more lights. He started working in the studio more, but he carried the compositional thoughtfulness that he learned from walking up to strangers on the street, and also the ability to communicate with people that he learned from walking up to strangers on the street. And he applied that to this work that he does at the publication that he works at. And it's such a beautiful mesh of him and them. And this gives me a lot of inspiration and a lot of hope because this is an art form that, as a street photographer, you think it's kind of hard to, you kind of have to think pretty creatively to make money with street photography. He found an interesting way to do that. And so if he can come up with that interesting way, you can also come up with your interesting way. So in conclusion, if you have collaboration goals with a brand and you want to make money with what you're up to, you have to be intentional about finding what that interface is. Let me backtrack. You don't have to be, because sometimes it happens by accident, but don't rely on that because it rarely happens by accident. It's a good idea to look for an interface point between you and them and perhaps tweak your style a little bit to make it work. And that's what I'm learning, and I'm still figuring out how to do that appropriately, but that's what I'm learning. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much. Goodbye.